Welcome everybody. Bienvenue tout le monde au séance extraordinaire du Conseil de la Ville de Westmount. Welcome everybody to the extraordinary council meeting of the City of Westmount for May 27th, 2025. Pour le 27 mai 2025. Thank you to everybody who turned out on such a beautiful night. So at tonight's council meeting, I just want to explain a little bit about what's on the agenda because I think there might be a bit of confusion about that. But tonight is a notice of motion and draft bylaws related to the special planning program that we've been referring to, le PPU en français, that will be adopted. This is a necessary procedural step ahead of the June 18th public assembly. Please note this is not the final adoption. It does not move any project forward at this stage. There is no approval of building permits or architecture or anything of the sort. The most important aspect of the PPU is that it enables a structured and transparent process for planning and consultation. All the relevant documentation concerning this project, the PPU, will be published on the city's website tomorrow. This will include an updated report from the consultants that incorporates the community feedback received to date. On June 18th, the public assembly will be held at Victoria Hall at 6 p.m. Donc c'est le 18 juin à 6 heures, le soir à Victoria Hall. Residents will have the opportunity to review the documentation in advance of the public meeting. During the meeting, the PPU project and the associated draft bylaws will be formally presented. Community members in attendance will be invited to share their concerns, comments, and opinions. As always, residents are welcome to voice their thoughts during regular council meetings or to be in touch with any member of City Council. Following the public meeting, council and city staff will gather and consider all the feedback, and a final vote is scheduled with or without modifications for September 8th, 2025. We recognize, or certainly I recognize, that this issue has generated significant public interest and discussion. This is the first time the City of Westmount is utilizing the special planning program tool. It was recommended in 2017 as the most effective path forward for developing a clear vision for the area. Having served on council, I know few topics are as divisive in a community. Perhaps dog runs might be more divisive. In a community as a potential development, housing projects, or infrastructure changes. What council unanimously agrees upon is that maintaining the status quo is not an option for this area. We've heard from many of you, both inside and outside of the council chamber, and we recognize the diversity of opinions in our community. We remain committed to continuing this important dialogue. After several years of work, I'm proud that we've reached this milestone. I want to sincerely thank my fellow council members for their dedication, the residents who engaged in this process, and our city administration and the external experts who supported this effort. And we're not all going to agree on everything. Nobody is ever going to agree entirely on every part of this project, and we don't all agree on council on how this moves forward. But I think we all know that this is a critical and important step in our city and in the future of our city. So I look forward to seeing you again on June 18th at the Public Assembly. So tonight we have several notices of a motion that we're going to adopt, but I think some of the councillors have some comments. Je pense qu'il y a des commentaires. On va commencer à ce côté. Madame Kez, est-ce que vous avez des commentaires à ce point ou non? Okay, thank you. Councillor Aronson, you want to say anything briefly?
Very briefly, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to thank everybody who's here tonight that came out and have been deeply interested in providing us your commentary and your questions and challenging preconceptions, speaking with your neighbors and fellow members of the community. This is one of the reasons that many of us sitting up here wanted to be involved in local politics, is to be involved in a community that's active and vital and interested in its own well-being and its own future. So though there is a diversity of opinions that are being expressed, and there may be moments at which we struggle a little bit to agree on exactly how to go forward, I think the most important thing for all of us to walk out of here remembering is that we're all here because we love this city and that we want to all work together for something better than what we already have, which is pretty great already. So thank you all for being here tonight.
Merci beaucoup. Councillor Gallery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually took the time to prepare some words, so if you will permit me to share my observations and what we've, sort of how we got here and where we're planning on hopefully going. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here tonight. I speak to you with conviction and care about an important opportunity before us, the Special Planning Program, more commonly known as the PPU, the Projet Particulier Urbain, for the southeast sector of Westmount. This process did not begin overnight. In fact, it was back in 2017 that the Agile report first recommended considering the adoption of a PPU to solve the many challenges of the southeast sector. Years later, on June 12, 2023, during a general committee meeting, the need for a clear and unified vision for the Southeast was raised, and the idea of a PPU was reintroduced. The matter was discussed again on July 17, 2023, and on October 24, 2023, Council decided to move forward unanimously, which of course led to the awarding of the contract to LEVÉE on January 15, 2024. Despite the numerous reports produced over the decades, very little has translated into meaningful change on the ground in the Southeast sector. These studies have offered insight, analysis, and vision, but they have largely sat on shelves. In fact, since 2010, the only concrete action that has taken place was the upzoning of St. Catharines' south side to allow for additional height. This pattern of inertia underscores the urgent need to move from reflection to implementation. The PPU is more than a policy document, it's an opportunity, an invitation to reimagine a part of our city that has been left behind for far too long. This PPU has been shaped by our community through surveys, consultations, and public meetings. Residents, business owners, community groups, and investors have all contributed their perspectives. The Southeast, as we all know, has experienced visible decline, vacant lots, underused buildings, rising homelessness, and a loss of vitality. If we do not act intentionally, that decline will continue. But if we act wisely and collaboratively, we can lay the groundwork for lasting renewal. The PPU equips us with the tool to do just that. It enables us to plan for the future of the Southeast within the broader framework of our urban planning program, with clarity, foresight, and shared purpose. This is about enabling the right kind of change, responsible density, thoughtful design, and a vibrant mix of uses that support inclusive and sustainable neighborhoods. Let me be clear, and I will reiterate Mayor Smith, we are not approving any specific project with the PPU. It is just a framework. What we're doing is setting a framework, a foundation to attract responsible investment. At the moment, under the current zoning, no serious development is taking place. Developers are not coming, and the opportunities we hope for are passing us by. Without this vision, without this framework, the Southeast will continue to decline, and that is not an option any of us should accept. I would like to underscore that this does not mean turning our backs on Westmount's heritage. As a member of the PAC, I see firsthand the dedication and professionalism that go into preserving our city's heritage. It is reassuring to know that both current and future members of PAC will remain actively engaged in reviewing any and all upcoming applications. We are indeed a heritage city, and we are proud of that. Revitalization and heritage preservation are not mutually exclusive. They can and must coexist. When done properly, new development can actually enhance the presence of our historic buildings and streetscape rather than overshadow them. Our goal is to protect what makes Westmount special while creating spaces for what it can become. We want to welcome life back into the Southeast with homes, shops, green spaces, gathering places that meet today's needs while honoring yesterday's legacy. I too would like to thank our urban planning teams, both internal and external, and all those who helped translate community input into a thoughtful and balanced proposal. This framework gives us all a foundation to build on. So again, we're not approving any specific project. It's a framework to welcome creative ideas and thoughtful proposals for the city we all care for. So let us envision, then let us build a Southeast Westmount that is greener, more connected, safer, and more resilient. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Councillor Gallery. Well said. Councillor Peart. No? Councillor Peart? Over to you.
Merci, Madame la Mairesse, and thank you. I'd love to see the room full like this. It shows that there's engagement in the community. We saw engagement like this in the sessions we had at Victoria Hall, We've had engagement throughout the process with a lot of feedback from the community. It is, like I said, it's a wonderful Tuesday night, and people are out. People are interested. People want to participate, and that's fantastic. So I just want to note that tonight marks an important step forward. And tonight we are presenting the first draft of the bylaws linked to the Special Planning Program, the SPP, for the Southeast sectors. Now, these are bylaws shaped through months of work, community input, professional guidance, and council deliberation. This isn't a new beginning, it's the next chapter. The upcoming public session will offer residents a clear, transparent walkthrough of the proposed framework. While the fundamentals are in place, we remain open to constructive feedback to help refine the details and improve clarity where it matters. But major shifts are not likely at this stage, but there's always room for thoughtful input. We've heard calls to preserve the status quo, but let's be honest, the status quo is not delivered. Despite a zoning revision in 2014, no project has broken ground, and the area continues to decline. What hasn't worked in the last decade won't suddenly start working now. This plan reflects a broader vision to solve problems that have festered for decades and to unlock opportunities for the next generation. It balances new investment with heritage values, scale with sensitivity, and growth with livability. The conversation isn't over, but we must be willing to move from discussion to direction. Let's engage thoughtfully, respectfully, and with a shared commitment to making this part of Westmount not just better than it is today, but better than we imagined that it possibly could be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peart. Councillor Shammy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to join you, Madam Mayor, and our fellow councillors to shout out that this is a transformative time. You know, looking for today, tomorrow, and of course our past. There's so much to be proud of, and there's so much to look forward to. And I think it's an opportunity with this framework, with this vision, to look forward to tomorrow. And it behests us for our children and our grandchildren. You know, 50 years from now, I sure won't be here, but the legacy of what we planned tonight, in the framework, in the first reading, and the process that Councillor Peart and Gallery and the Mayor have laid out, it's fundamental to our participatory democracy. That's the process that we have. And I just want to say, Madam Mayor, it's beautiful. Chapeau.
Thank you. Councillor Roux, do you have anything you want to add?
Yes, if you don't mind. Thank you. Bonsoir. I believe a redevelopment plan is sorely needed for the southeast sector of Westmount. I wish for the wheels to get in motion for us to approve a plan that will respond to the needs and ambitions of our community. However, I cannot vote in favor of certain proposed draft bylaws this evening. I feel it has to be shown to residents first. This plan will be transformational and consequential for the entire Westmount community. Many residents will be more directly impacted. A number of residents participated in our consultations, others gave feedback through the website, and others reached out to councillors. I believe residents deserve the right to see the proposed plan before I vote to move it forward. I sit on council to represent residents. In September, when comes time for the final vote, I will know how Westmounters feel about the proposed redevelopment plan, the pros and the cons, and I will be able to take, in my opinion, what will be the best decision for our entire community.
So just to be clear, that's the purpose of tabling the draft bylaws and giving notice of motion, is that we will then put them online, and then you have 3 weeks to digest them, and then we'll have a public meeting, and that's part of the steps. But we have to do this meeting in order to move forward. But thank you for your commentary. So we know this hasn't been easy, and it's, you know, there had been some discussion of, you know, pushing it off, waiting till the next round. We've been at this for a couple years, obviously now, and I don't think we should delay anymore. I think it is a responsibility. You don't, I know there was some commentary that in the last year of a mandate of a mayor who's already decided not to run, that you shouldn't be doing significant initiatives. I don't think 25% of a mandate should be wasted, and I think we have an obligation to continue to move forward. And it's, I suppose the easier thing would have been to push it down the line. I could have not ripped up Sherbrooke Street as well in the last bit of my mandate, but we've decided to do that as well, because they're important, and they're important infrastructure projects that we're getting done, and this is a really important an important project for the city to try and get right and to try and build consensus, which might mean that not everybody's happy and not everybody gets exactly what they want. I think it's Councillor Roux who said perfection is the enemy of the good. But I think we are definitely on the right path, or at least I believe that. And I look forward to your feedback, and I hope that you're able to participate on June 18th, and you will be able to see, it'll be, j'imagine que ça va être dans Engage Westmount, in that section, where all the documents have been all along throughout this process. And that's where you will find a very lengthy report on this process, and as well some changes. And you'll see some changes. It's not just, we didn't just regurgitate the report, and there's many aspects to come. So I know there's been a lot of questions about housing and architecture and design and things like that, and that's really not the stage that we're at, but I am thrilled that people are engaged in this. Donc, on va commencer avec la première période de questions, which means that it has to be on this, because this is a special council meeting, the questions are meant to be on this topic. So again, if you want to talk to me about dog runs, tonight is not the night to do that. And we have online questions, which, because the room is full, I would imagine we'll probably do the online questions in the second question period. On va commencer. Welcome.
Hi, Council and Mayor. I'm Cynthia Lellum. I'm the Director General for the Quartier Green West Merchants Association, and I'm here on their behalf tonight. My address is 4550 St. Catherine Street. The merchants on St. Catherine Street from Green on suffer from what is going on at the other end of the street from Atwater. As Councillor Gallery mentioned, there's lots of problems with homelessness, with crime. The police basically are there every day, our two community police officers, so they're not in Victoria Village much because there's so much going on over there. The different boutiques from Wood Street on suffer enormously from the happenings, and it's the entry into our city. So on behalf of the merchants, we urge council to adopt this vision, to move forward, to get it going. This area needs redevelopment. It needs redevelopment urgently. It would be an economic engine for the area. There's so much opportunity, and so I'm here on their behalf that they would like it known, and they'd like also for the councillor from the district to know that these are their feelings. They are constituents as well, and they would like to see redevelopment of the Southeast. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your commentary.
Julia Gersovitz. Do I give my address?
You don't have to.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You used to, but you don't anymore.
Oh, okay. I have two questions. One is simply procedural, excuse me, and the other one relates to the information packages that we just received, as in effect, minutes before this meeting started. So the procedural one, and I'm going to read it. On May the 5th, I heard former Mayor Marks ask you, Mayor Smith, when there would be a public consultation on the modifications that LeVée would be doing to the project, and we all saw that the firm was given about $20,000 to do those modifications. You responded at the May 5th meeting, and this is a verbatim quote, that the notice of motion, as you know better than anyone, speaking to Mayor Marks, is a step in the process, but it is not the adoption, obviously. June 18th is when you will see the result of lots of the feedback and lots of the input, and there will be a public consultation that night. And then there is time for more feedback, and then the idea of the calendar would be to adopt the bylaw a couple of months later in September. End of quote. So you said that the 18th is not just a public presentation, but on May the 5th you said it will be a real public consultation. A public consultation invites reactions, opinions, and suggestions that would allow council to consider them and then direct LeMay to enhance their design by integrating the best public feedback. So here's the first part of my first question. If this is a case, why is tonight's notice of motion stating that it is adoption of the first draft of the resolution rather than a tabling of the first draft? Is it a tabling?
We have to vote. Are you asking why we're voting on a notice of motion when we don't typically vote on a notice of motion?
yeah.
Because anything that is with the Land Use Planning Act requires a vote when it's given a
Okay.
notice.
And if this draft
The
is...
difference between when we, because you've seen us adopt or table notice of motions,
Right.
and we don't always vote,
Okay.
you have to by law vote.
So if in fact the first draft is to be adopted tonight, how much latitude will there be to make changes, perhaps even significant ones, to assure that the June 18th public consultation really is consultative and that concerns and suggestions can and will be incorporated into the final bylaw?
So the intention is to put all of the communication, this is a step in the process. So this isn't meant to be a public consultation tonight,
No.
or all of the information will be there, and there's a lot of information. This is, it's cumbersome because it requires, zoning bylaw changes that have, had to be reviewed extensively by internal counsel and external counsel. It will give people 3 weeks to look at the documents, review them, and be able to come and see them presented. And listen, I can't guarantee that council will vote in favor of this, or that, I don't want to presume. I think that there's support for many aspects of this. But we will listen to the community as we have all along and as we have through the public consultations.
So just to reiterate, just to reconfirm what you said on May the 5th, it will be a public consultation and not simply a public information session. Is that correct?
Je pense que c'est une assemblée publique en français, where you will be invited to give feedback. Are we working at tables and redrawing in this format? No, it's going to be a different, there'll be a presentation, and then there will be a forum for you to give your feedback.
Okay, my second question is quite simple, but it relates to your changes of bylaws 1642 and 1643, which I've read through in the last 10 minutes. Why is there a necessity for incentive zoning? This is the first time I think you are introducing it into the city. And why has it not been done with any breadth of public discussion whatsoever? It is a planning tool that can be quite wide-ranging in its ramifications.
I pause because it's a complex question, and I don't have a simple answer. Sorry? Oh, okay. Thank you. The incentive zoning, what we've done is we have put together a framework where there is an ability to implement incentive zoning. The provincial government allows us, and well, all municipalities, to incentivize, I think, along 4 different types of projects. We have included those types of projects in the framework, and it does not mean that each and every one of them is explicitly guaranteed, but it does mean that each and every one of them is possible. And it also means that it is non-binding. It doesn't mean that we are making that determination around the table today. What it means is once that application comes in at that time, the council of that day will have the tools at their ready to decide how to proceed.
But am I correct in saying that this is the first time that incentive zoning has been put into the public eye at this council meeting? I had heard nothing of incentive zoning before. Could you confirm that today is the first day, as you are voting on it, that you have introduced it into the public discussion?
No, I don't believe that to be the case. In the first
Je
version,
pense que la greffière
Oops.
va donner un commentaire sur ça.
Right.
Oui, en fait, selon la loi, le projet de règlement est déposé lors de l'avis de motion. L'avis de motion sera donné ce soir, en fait, après la période de questions. Et c'est à ce moment-là qui devient, en fait, matière publique. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'il y a des copies ce soir parce que ça fait l'objet des avis de motion aujourd'hui. Mais les documents sont tabled aujourd'hui, ce qui fait en sorte que c'est à partir d'aujourd'hui qu'ils sont disponibles. C'est ce que prévoit la loi.
I understand the legal discussion of that. Thank you very much, Clerk. However, in all of the discussions about the southeast sector, what I'm asking is whether or not this very significant planning tool has been discussed with the general population of Westmount as to whether or not you would be considering using it and putting a bylaw to enable it. Has it been discussed before
yes.
in public?
Yes, so in the document that has been available since the November, I believe it was published in November, in the document that you all have at your disposal, when we were talking about heights, I believe on the St. Catherine side, and I'm going from memory now, so please don't quote me on this. I believe also on the Dorchester side, there was a plus height.
Yes, I saw that in the little bubble. It
Right,
said
so
plus
that
5.
that's the plus 5. That is the bonus.
And that's how you feel you put it into the public eye. Okay, I think
Thank you
you've
for your
answered the
comments.
question. Thank you.
Next question.
John Breslaw, Westmount. I'm looking at, again, speed reading, and this really follows up on Julia's comments. Bylaw 1641. And if I understand this correctly, les grilles de spécification pour the zoning, the proposed zoning, is included at the back of this document. Is that correct? The grill there is the proposed zoning.
Yes, which will
That's
be
correct.
all available online once we table it.
I'm not online yet. Okay. So if we go to zone C72409, which is the first one, and what we see is, whereas in the original document by LeVée, we were looking at 25 stories plus incentive, we now see, amazingly, that the maximum height in stories for each of the 3 building types is 7 stories. Wow, that's a change, isn't it?
I don't think you're reading.
You with me?
No.
Okay.
But we're just
looking
tabling
at-
the documents tonight, and this is
No,
not
no.
the most effective way to.
Yes, that's why I'm responding to the most
Okay, you
effective
can
way.
pose your question, and then we'll move on to the
So,
next one.
C72409, at the back of 1641, states that the maximum number of stories is 7. C72409 is the block of land on the south of St. Catherine between Atwater and Gladstone.
It's the current zoning.
This is not the current zoning, not according to the bylaw. The bylaw says, and I just asked Councillor Peart, is the zoning that is attached to this bylaw the proposed? And he responded, yes. And indeed, Section 6 says exactly that.
What he's talking about right there.
Appendix A1 are repealed and replaced with the tables in appendix to this bylaw. So I understand from this that we are now listening to public comments and have decided, according to this zoning bylaw here, to restrict the maximum number of stories on the south side of St. Catherine to 7. Am I reading this correctly?
No,
I'm not reading this correctly.
no.
Okay.
But you have plenty of opportunity to read the bylaw in full.
I'm not reading 7 maximum stories here correctly.
I don't know what page you're on, sir.
Can I present it to you?
You can present it to the city clerk. And then we'll move on to the next question.
C72409. It's a zone on the south of St. Catherine between Atwater and Gladstone. So,
What page are you on, John?
It's possible.
Okay, thank you for your commentary. We're going to move to the
Oh.
next question.
since this is what you are proposing, am I correct that the maximum number of stories is on the south of St. Catherine, between Gladstone and Atwater, is, as per this page, 7?
No.
Well, why am I reading 7 here? And why
I
did the
don't-
city clerk just confirm that it was 7? This
I'm
is
not sure what
is-
you're referring to.
This is what you are tabling. Now, you're either tabling this or you're not tabling this. You can't have it both ways.
I'm not sure. So we're going to move on to the next question.
No, we're not. We have something.
Sorry, Mr. Breslaw.
Madam Mayor, I asked the question that said, is the maximum number of stories on the south of St. Catherine on zone C72409 7 as specified in the updated
The
grill?
south side of St. Catherine is not 7, no. So I'm going to ask the urban planning. I think you're in the wrong area. So this is why we're tabling the information. You can review the information and you're welcome to ask the questions afterwards. We are tabling it today. I'm not sure which area you're talking about. We're going to move on to the next question. Thank you. Mr. Breslaw. No, Mr. Breslaw.
Good
Next
evening.
question.
Good evening, Carol Christie.
Yeah, sorry, I think Councillor Peart just wants to, I just would also like to stress that we have to run these meetings efficiently and respectfully. So Councillor Peart, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just think it's important to recognize that this is a whole body of bylaws that are changing simultaneously. So the numbers that may be applying, the zone references that may apply today don't necessarily translate to the version that you're going to see. So I caution you against picking one point without having and nobody's had time in the room to put this all together. So I caution you against just taking one thing and not seeing it in its totality, because everything is related. And just to address Mr. Breslaw's question recently, that zone has changed in size and location. So it's not the zone that currently exists, it's a new zone, even though it has the same number. So just drawing that and making that concordance no longer works.
Which is why we would stress that you take the information, look at what is tabled, which is put on our website tomorrow. There's a lot of information, and to come back on June 18th, having been able to digest it all. Next question, sorry.
Good evening, Carol Christie Olson, Westmount Square.
Welcome.
Thank you. One, I clearly commend on all the work and effort that has gone into the PPU process. And I really appreciate hearing that you're open to more feedback and that the conversation isn't over and that this process is participatory democracy, as I've heard a lot of you say. However, any plan, whether it's for a home, I'll just take my own, where we do renovations or we rebuild in a major way, doesn't really just go through one iteration. It goes through many iterations, that a plan usually goes to 2 and 3. The current plan, that is a pretty significant one, that is proposing to make some pretty significant changes. And I know you call it a framework, but it's a framework that will make height changes that will alter the look of this sector going forward. And really, the decision is between, do we want an extension of downtown going west, or do we want an extension of Westmount going east? That really is what we're talking about here. And I guess what I don't understand is that why we're rushing a plan through after one revision, upon which we're going to present it, give community members 3 weeks to respond. And I feel that at every stage we've limited the amount of community response. And yet we keep reiterating that it's really the community that decides. And I think the community has raised some significant questions that deserve answers. I think there's been some empirical data that hasn't been provided supporting increase in heights, because there's a lot of evidence that shows that it's not supportive of height increases, that there are other ways. Experts have come forward and proposed other ways that we can achieve density without height in this sector. And I guess I'm wondering, why aren't we taking the same approach that while we're in the process and we're reviewing, just like you would review plans for your own home, you don't approve the first plan. Sometimes you don't even approve the second plan. It takes 3, 4, 5. And why aren't we giving ourselves a time? We're in the process. It's important. No one's arguing that this district doesn't deserve immediate and urgent attention. But isn't it worth taking the time to put together a good plan, not just any plan? And I know you're saying that this is just a framework, but it's much more than just a framework. And I guess I'm asking,
So
can we extend, one, why are we rushing? And why are we extending the process to allow more feedback based on the changes? And again, we haven't seen the changes, so we don't know what they are. But there's a lot of unanswered questions, and I think we hear a repeated narrative that is, there's been no development by the property owners on this strip. And really no answer other than it's been 10 years and there's been no development. And
It's
yet we
been
have
much
experts
more
who
than
have
10 years.
proposed
Yeah.
all sorts of answers or possibilities or options that we're not exploring. And I guess,
So-
why is that?
thank you for your commentary, and thank you for your involvement. I know you've had an opportunity to meet with council as a representative of the Atwater Library, and you've been involved in the process, so thank you for participating in that. And I think we do hear from all sorts of people. And we hear from a lot of people that aren't actually in the council chamber, that don't come to the council meetings. And we've heard from them for a long time as well. So it's, I hope that people don't think that the commentary that's happening in the council chamber is not the only commentary that we're hearing, for sure. And I think that you will have time to give feedback, and there has been a lot of time. You know, this is not a process we rushed through overnight, and it has been substantive consultation. It has been somewhat different than other consultations that I had been involved with in this sector, in terms of the length of it, in terms of the involvement in it, and in terms of the community participation was quite different. In the past, it had been very localized. This one, I think we found more people seeing it as a project for all of Westmount as opposed to just those that live in the immediate vicinity, which was really the goal for it, right? Is that it is a project for all of Westmount. It is, this is not just about, you know, one street or one block, but it is clearly one block is very problematic. And it is not a block that anyone should be proud of in this city, in particular on the south side. So I think we've given it a lot of time, and I look forward to your feedback when you get a chance to look at it. And again, as I said, you know, we have a schedule that's in place, and that's not to presume, I don't want to presume how council's going to vote on it, but
So is there anything that could be said in a feedback session coming up on the plan by a majority of community members that would possibly persuade the council to delay its vote in September?
Well, I mean, you can share your opinion with us, and it's our job is to represent, we'll be the ones voting on it. Council will be the ones voting on it. So I encourage you to share your opinion on it.
So what we're saying is that we're going to see a revision that is unlikely to change.
You'll see changes in there, for sure.
No, changes from the previous version, but version 2 will be the final version.
It's not, no, that's not necessarily the final version. There can be some changes in there, but it's, again, I reiterate, we hear from lots of different opinions on this.
Yeah,
So-
well, it'd be nice that they were more public so we understood.
I think
just-
I welcome, there have been some that are more public, and there's been lots of discussion on it, and I encourage you to meet with them.
Oh, we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and fellow residents. My name is Soria Balavi. I speak here tonight not only as a Westmount resident, homeowner. I've been living in Westmount for 20 years, as well as a property owner of 4000 St. Catherine Street. I'm here to express strong and urgent support on behalf of myself and my colleagues and neighbors and friends for the city's PPU. As you're aware, we sent you a letter a few weeks back with myself and my colleagues, which we represent about 1,000 residents and commercial businesses supporting this PPU. Let's be frank, the current condition of this area is unacceptable. This stretch of St. Catherine Street, one of Westmount's most visible gateways, has become unsafe, unsightly, and unworthy of our community's values. We're witnessing rising crime, daily police interventions, and the tragic cases, gun violence, and even homicide. Staff and residents at nearby properties such as Alexis Neon, Illeven Atwater, the Forum, Chateau Westmount, and other neighboring buildings have faced terrifying incidences. Some even held at gunpoint and knife. People are afraid to walk the streets after dark. That should never happen in Westmount. We need decisive change, and we need it now. Defending the status quo or offering a minor tweak to the bylaw that has already failed to deliver meaningful results is not a solution. Worse, delays. Can we postpone? Delays could push progress back another 5 to 10 years, allowing further decline while residents and businesses continue to bear the cost. It's deeply ironic that those who authored the existing bylaw, those who presided over its failure for a decade, are now its loudest defenders. After 10 years of inaction, deterioration, how much more evidence do we need? The same voices that helped create this stalemate should not be blocking the way forward. The district today looks depleted. The current zone is economically unviable. No developer will build at a loss. Without reform, we will be left with vacant lots, decaying structure, and missed opportunity. The proposed height limits of 15 floors generally and up to 25 on the corner are not excessive. In fact, they're modest and entirely in line with urban planning norms and transit-oriented, centrally located developments. So my question is, despite all the pressure that you are getting from what we believe, a vocal minority, are you well aware of the silent majority that is in big support of this process? And what can we do to make sure that you're aware of this?
Thank you for your question and your commentary. I know you've been involved in the public consultation process throughout. So I thank everybody who takes the time to come to these meetings and engage. It is interesting when we talk about any developments in the city, whether it's a 4-unit townhouse project, or it's the refurbish, or the redevelopment of 500 Claremont, or whatever it is. There is always going to be opposition to something, whether it's a small project, a built building. 4998 de Maisonneuve caused a complete and total uproar for a conversion project, and it was an already built building. It existed. It was converting 5 stories of office into 5 stories of residential. Anyway, it didn't happen. So I am very well aware, as is council, that often those who are opposed have the loudest voice. But what I have seen in this proposal, or seen in this process, is it's not just the loudest voices that have engaged in this. And listen, I think the public consultation process in how we've done it is, we're learning along the way. It can be flawed in many ways. But in this case, I feel like it brought in a lot more voices than maybe we would have had otherwise. So I know at council meetings, it can seem like everything is against, but that's not what I'm hearing when I'm in the community, when I'm at meetings, when I'm meeting with residents, or when I'm, and like my inbox. So I do think this is a process that has, and I guess maybe it gets to a point, there was like the project, the Hillside Armory project, which was, was almost blocked with a petition and a referendum process. And that was, people were very opposed to it that lived in a building next door that had, demolished a building to build, it's like sometimes it's a bit ironic. But in this process, we really have heard from a lot of people, and it's not all negative. And I think a lot of it is probably due to the fact that the state of St. Catherine Street is so dire. It's, as Councillor Peart has often put it, it's like it's the patient in the ER on the gurney, basically. And we need to deal with it. So I think that has brought in a lot more differing views on this, which hasn't made it easy, right? Because it's not just, but I get that it's hard. I get change is hard. I get that the unknown of construction is hard. But I also get that people want, what's best for the community, and that there is a fear of being swallowed by downtown. But I have faith in this process. I also have faith in our planning advisory committee, that the projects, once projects do come forward, that they will be projects that are, we have very high standards, and we have, we're very demanding, as anyone who knows who's been through the process knows that. So I think it's, this one has been a little bit different in that it's not just, of which I try and reiterate to people, we really have heard from we have had a lot of positive feedback. The questioner behind you has also been very participative in this, in another generation and another generation's view of how we approach this. So I've appreciated that. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on that. Councillor Peart?
I'll jump in just a little bit. A previous resident had mentioned not wanting Ville Marie or Montreal moving westward towards Westmount. But at the same time, it would also from a resident of Westmount Square, it would make sense that Westmount move a little bit south from the north side of St. Catherine to the south side of St. Catherine, and having buildings in the same height and density of Westmount Square would not be a bad thing. And if investors and developers like yourself are willing and able to bring first-class, world-class architecture to the neighborhood, I would welcome it. And I know the PAC is the steward for the city, and that they will work hard with the investors and developers to ensure for a good product, something that is emblematic, something that is a match to the what we would expect in Westmount. So I look forward to something like that.
And our current PAC members have reviewed, have been part of this review process. So thank you for your commentary and your involvement. Next question.
Jessica Winton.
Welcome.
I would like to concur entirely with the gentleman before me, as I feel that this is quite a modest proposal for a framework, not an actual plan going forward. And quite honestly...
you have to give your name, Jessica Winton, for the record.
I did.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Maybe
Sorry.
it didn't get picked
Connor
up on the mic, sorry.
I think you did. Okay.
And where was I? Yes. Quite honestly, I think the framework is very modest. A lot of the heights of the buildings are really not that high. And when I have now finished my urban planning degree...
Congratulations.
Thank you. I think that, quite honestly, it's a much more systemic problem than just housing or just the character of the neighborhood. Because if we consider what a more built environment looks like with additional housing or additional places to rent for businesses, it can drive down the cost of a lot of goods in Westmount too, because merchants won't be paying these exorbitant rents when there's more competition for landlords. So that can make things like restaurants cheaper, it can make goods cheaper, and it can make housing a lot cheaper. I am looking for a place to stay in Ottawa while I do my master's, and to get a studio apartment in Gatineau is $1,600 per month. And if we look at places within Montreal, there are apartments in the gay village along Papineau that it's a 2-bedroom apartment. It goes for $860,000. Westmount, as expensive as it is already, is only going to get worse if we do not redevelop this. And so my question is, when going through multiple revisions, will there ever be an increase in heights?
Are we going to go higher than what had been seen in the first iteration? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
No, there's no intention to go higher. I know there had been some discussion in some public meetings that were not run by us that had talked about, very significant heights on Dorchester. That is not part of the proposal at this point.
And will the city plan to use its right of first refusal to purchase any land during the redevelopment for affordable housing?
That is not a question I can answer at this point, and that will be something for the next council to deal with. But it's definitely a topic that the current council has discussed extensively. In particular, just more options, right? And as an aging city as well, for more options on that end, but also to bring in more families. This is a great community, despite when the vibe of the local paper can be sometimes. This is a great community to live in. It has great services, and I could be a family that lives across Atwater in an apartment, because some people do that, and I have no soccer team to play on, and I have no outdoor swimming pool to go in, and I may be out of the zone of Roslyn School. You can go to kids' daycare, École Saint-Léon, École Internationale, you can go to Dawson, you can stay within your community, and you have these incredible schools. So more options for families, but also more options to keep seniors in their communities is a good thing, and more people. We're one of 2 cities in the CMM that has lost population, us and Kirkland. That shouldn't be a goal for us. So if we can have more residents, more people in Gentile buying coffee, more people using our, we can have more people in our pools and our parks and and on our fields. And we really are a great community, and we offer incredible services compared to Montreal. So when we talk about being, to downtown doesn't have the WRC. So downtown doesn't have Roslyn School. So I think for those reasons, anyways, if you're asking for more heights, for us to go higher, then you really want my head on a stake in the town square. So
Not me personally.
Anyways, thank you for your commentary. Next question.
Thank you.
Connor Sampson, Grover
Welcome.
Avenue. Madam Mayor, Council. I've been accused of being long-winded by certain of my professional colleagues when I ask questions, so I'll try and be succinct. I additionally tried to speed read the documents that were presented to us this afternoon.
Which we hope you take the time to
Oh, I will,
read.
yes. I think 3 weeks should give me time. But I just, very particular, I was hoping perhaps Councillor Peart could give me a rundown of what the benefit of collective interest might actually constitute in the incentive zoning proposal.
It's not defined, nor will it be defined in the PPU, and it will be up to a future council to define it. So I think intentionally, the provincial government has left it loose enough, flexible enough, that it isn't prescriptive, and in the same way for us, we're not going to be prescriptive either.
So this is a generalized term offered by the provincial government in this type of zoning.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
But I mean, some examples that would be, I would assume, some examples could be a community center for the entire community, a school for a community, seniors facility for a community, things like that.
Thank you.
Next question?
Good evening. My name is Valerie Lazarescu. I'm a resident of Westmount for about a year. I've lived in Montreal for about 30 years, and I'm in development. So I believe, Ms. Gallery, you mentioned no developers have come to the table for some of these projects. I'm here today to actually say, I'm here to hear what I could do and how I could help. As a ways of background, I am currently a Westmount resident. Well, all my projects with my company are Florida-based. I would love to do projects here, but the reality is that financially, at the federal level, at the provincial level, at the municipal level, you make it very hard for me to spend my money here and invest. I'm currently developing a $580 million project in downtown Miami, 48 stories. I'm doing another $126 million project in Orlando, multifamily housing, providing 420 units. Another one in Lake Nona for about 320 units, another $120 million. These are big amounts. These are people that I co-invest with that we can easily put our money here and today tell you we're willing to commit $300 million, $500 million to develop. But you got to give us a plan that makes sense, right? How many people in the room here are developers or capital markets people? Anybody? You're pointing? 2, 3? Okay, I think we should get together and put together a plan and propose it. But you got to give us something. So my question to you is, if I made you, you're a princess for a day, what are you solving for? What do you want to see? Capital is not an issue. Developers are at the table. What's the timeline? What do you want? What do you want to see?
So I think you will see when you look at some of the documents online or look at all of the documents online that we are hoping to move forward with a vision. There are some proposals in there. What do we want to see? We want to see a fix of a problem, which is clearly there. We want to rejoin.
Which is what? Specifically.
Which is what? St. Catherine Street. It is demolished buildings. It is that they would rather walk away from a deposit than build the building. It is I think it's pretty obvious.
No, it's not.
Anyway, we
gotta be specific here. What are you solving
okay.
for?
Yes, Conrad, you can.
What are you solving for?
I'm going to give it one word: revitalization.
Okay. Which means what? To you, what does it mean?
Okay.
I might have a vision of it. You might. I just want to get an idea of where you stand on this. What's your vision?
Well, I think I encourage you to look at the documents online and what the next iteration of them.
Okay. Are you willing to look at my vision for what I've built and see, hey, how we can work together?
Sure. So this is probably not the best forum for me to be doing that, but I think your question or the point that you're trying to raise is that it's easier to do business elsewhere, and you would like to be able to do business in your hometown.
That's fair. With
Okay.
a vision. I need a clear vision.
Okay. I encourage you to look at the documents. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next question.
John Fretz, 473 Lansdowne. I'm going to be looking at this documentation that we have just received, and I for my own edification, and I guess also hinging on what John Breslaw said, is that you have here the, you're going to change low or mid-density residential to mid or high density. Well, what I'm used to, if you're getting into this kind of contractual work, is what do you mean? What are your definitions for those? Or are they somewhere that I haven't seen, but I didn't find them?
Yes, they will. It's all in the documentation that's going to be online.
It'll tell me what mid-density means and what high density means.
Yeah.
Okay. The other one is that here, Westmount, the use of strong contrast is inappropriate. So here's a question. Do you think it's inappropriate to put a high-rise next to the Atwater Library as a contrast?
I don't know which page you're referring to.
Okay, here it is. It's
So you don't have to, I can answer that question more vaguely. I think it's very important, obviously, that the heritage buildings within the community, of which the Atwater Library is one of them, are respected, and they play an important role. And I have complete faith in the Planning Advisory Committee when they review those applications.
okay. So the one I was just looking at was 1640. So if I go into your documentation, you'll tell me how many stories is high density and how many stories is low.
Yeah, you'll have, all of the information will be online.
Okay, thank you. The other thing, I'm just curious, I mean, you're going to be building, I mean, presumably you want some density to amortize the infrastructure, which will be enormous. Do you have plans or to do a study as to how many families can come in and how many schools can accommodate the influx of children? You want children, you want families. So are they going to be able to go to schools that we have now? Has a study been made, like a demographic study?
There are, I think you will see in the PPU document, there are some demographic profiles that have been generated. They are not looking forward as to anticipate what the demographics will be. So to answer your specific question, has every consideration been made for X amount of children, for Y amount of households, in terms of the institutions that would be required for that? That is not part of this scope in the PPU.
Sorry, that is not what this is for?
That's not part of the scope of the PPU, nor is it generally included in the scope of the PPU.
So thank you for your question.
Yeah, well, it's a little difficult to think that, now you say the demographic study has been made, and I can find that only offline, or where would it?
I think he's talking more Statistics Canada.
Exactly. So you will see in the PPU, they will give a breakdown of the current population of Westmount, basically a StatsCan map that's mapped over our territory and the like.
Yeah, okay, and here's the last one, which I think should be a part of this discussion. In terms of finances, I mean, that area down at Atwater, southeast, will require an enormous outlay. I mean, sewers, a collector probably the size of this room, all the electricity and all that stuff. Will a study be made as to how the city will amortize this with a view to getting, to paying it off in due time and getting some money back? I mean, will there be a financial study that says this amount of housing will generate this, and minus all the stuff that we have to build? Are you going to do a fiduciary kind of thing that will tell residents at some point that they're up for $20 to $40 million and they can expect to get maybe $28 million? Are we going to have something like that?
Yes, but that is not part of the PPU. Obviously, infrastructure costs coming forward depend on the projects and what's happening. We can't make up a cost of that. So thank you for your question.
It's interesting because ultimately what nailed, I'll be brief, what nailed Meadowbrook was the infrastructure cost. They needed to build like either an overpass or an underpass to accommodate what they did, and no amount of high rises was going to cover that, and that really helped save it. So I'm just saying, leaving stuff is maybe not the best way to go. We should be developing those ideas and conclusions as we develop this over here. Otherwise, it's kind of like, I don't know.
Thank you for your commentary. This is the last question, and then we'll move in because we have a second question period afterwards.
Thank you very much. This really follows from John's request.
John Bresla.
Thank you. And John's point, and it's totally valid, and that is a number of municipalities have not been able to undergo to advance housing projects because they have simply not been able to afford the infrastructure involved. Westmount is interesting in that concept because it provides the electricity. And obviously for the high density that is going to be involved here, we're going to need a large amount of electricity. Recently, Chateau Westmount asked for an extension, an addition, and this addition was denied because Hydro Westmount stated that it could not supply the electricity, the capacity, for that extension. If we cannot provide electricity for an extension of Chateau Westmount, what are we doing considering, let me finish, what are we going to do considering this particular project? Now, remember, Hydro Westmount is taking a lot of money already. It's $2 to $3 million a year in capital investment. It's making a loss of $2 to $3 million a year. And this is at the best of times. We have to upgrade each of the substations from 15 kilowatt to 25 kilowatt to match Hydro-Quebec's requirements. We have a huge amount of investment that has to happen in Hydro Westmount that we will have huge problems just standing still. And you actually stated this in January 2024 of the problem involved in this. So let me share with you my nightmare. My nightmare is that you pass these zonings, 20 stories with 6 Disneylands added for lot C18 2415. One of our developers, Cominar, Kervic Inc., one of these large developers, goes and buys that land to do this, and then, lo and behold, well, we're very sorry, Mr. Developer, but we can't provide the hydro because we cannot go and borrow 30, 40, 50 million to put in a new substation at LEVÉE because that's the nearest one, which was built 75 years ago, let alone the increase in capacity from the Saint-Antoine. The developer has every right to sue Westmount, every right, having bought that. And that's the question that John's asking, and that's the question that I'm asking, which is, you do not do zoning changes without having done the benefit cost fiscal model first. You have to know that you can provide the infrastructure that's concomitant with the zoning that you're putting forth. And frankly, this doesn't seem to happen. Now, I asked Jeff a couple of questions.
I think Councillor Shammy responded to you, and then I'm going to...
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I believe he responded to you. Just the Shadow Westmount situation is... I don't think you have the full facts on that application, nor will I talk about a specific application for you. But it was not denied because of...
It's very possible, you know.
Yeah, it is.
Transparency is...
Entirely.
But it is true, isn't it, that we have a...
Councillor Shammy, do you want to
Yes, please.
weigh in? And then we're going to move into the next part of the agenda.
If I can, Madame Mayor, firstly, John, thank you for the question. I did receive it, and I sent it to our officials. And that's why what we're doing tonight with the first reading, so that this vision document will then allow us to do the studies that you're talking about. So an economic impact study will be commissioned as part of the preparation of the SPP. This study cannot be launched until the final version of the SPP is known. So what we're doing, ladies and gentlemen, tonight, and what we've been doing for how long has this process been on? Over a year of consultation? So 18 months. So this is our participatory democracy, and you raise excellent questions. When completed, once the SPP is completed and it's enacted, it's followed through, or whatever, this study will become a tool enabling the city to plan the infrastructure investments, the hydro, all the issues that you eloquently raise. But we must start tonight. So with great respect, thank you, John, for your question, but we're just getting going.
Fair enough. So you are informing us indeed that this is a starting point, your point. We obviously have to do these studies, agreed, and that nothing will be inked in until the studies have been done and we are convinced that we can provide the infrastructure necessary. Merci beaucoup.
We are now going to move into the next part of the agenda. On va faire la prochaine après la période des questions, puis après on va faire les questions en ligne. Numéro 3, c'est l'adoption de l'ordre du jour par Madame Gallery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the agenda of the special council sitting of May 27, 2025 be adopted.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Bostock. All in favor? Carried. Numéro 4, c'est l'avis de motion et adoption du premier projet de règlement de concordance, règlement 1638, modifiant le plan d'urbanisme. C'est Conseil Pirt, celui-là.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. I hereby give notice of motion and table that the draft bylaw 1638 entitled Bylaw Amending the Planning Program, and I give notice of motion of the intention to submit it for adoption at a subsequent meeting of council. This draft bylaw is a concordance bylaw required for the amendment of the urban plan through the integration of the Special Planning Program, the PPU, for the southeast sector of Westmount Southeast PPU.
Merci. Now you move on to the next part, sorry.
So I
Je
propose
m'excuse.
to adopt the first draft of the bylaw. And by doing so, I move to adopt the first draft of bylaw 1638, amending the planning program, which is necessary for the amendment of the urban plan through the integration of the special planning program for the southeast sector of Westmount Southeast PPU. To hold, in accordance with the Act respecting land use planning and development, CQLR, Chapter A19.1, a public meeting regarding this draft by law, its content, and the consequences of its adoption on June 18th of 2025 at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Shammy is going to second that. Do you want to add any further comments to this? No? All in favor? Those opposed? C'était Monsieur Shammy qui l'a appuyé. Councillor Kez, Councillor Roux are voting against this. Do you want to comment as to why you're voting against?
There's just a light comment. Though I'm strongly in favor of moving forward with a plan for the Southeast, there are certain aspects of the current plan which I'm hoping can be modified. Until then, I cannot in good conscience be in favor of the adoption of the first draft bylaw 1638, amending the planning program.
Thank you. Did you want to add some commentary, Councillor Aronson?
I did, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry, I put my hand up to ask for commentary, but it was counted as the positive vote that I intended. So let me just say this.
So you did vote in favor?
I did vote in favor, and I will continue to vote in favor. And I
Okay.
want to explain what I'm doing and what I think those who are in favor for. The PPU is a legal mechanism designed by the provincial government to allow cities like ours to have a robust public consultation and involvement project in resetting zoning in the manner that we have conduct ourselves for the last year and will continue until this project is completed. What we're doing tonight is adopting these drafts as our official statement of where we have come from the beginning of the most general vague terms in terms of what people in our community would like to see. It's been all compiled, read back to the community, we've received further commentary, it's been refined further, and now is the time that we have to actually give the community back something solid for everyone to have a good look at. What we are voting on tonight is moving forward with the solid first draft of what we propose as a vision. If we vote this down tonight, then all of the people who desperately wish to see what it is we've been working on for so long, what it is we really propose, never get to see it. The process stops. And all of the energy that has been put into getting to this point, and all of the people who have involved themselves in this project that are here tonight and who have come to public consultations and who have written to their councillors and have published articles in the paper and have spoken to each other and come to consensuses, whether or not all of them agree is secondary, none of them get to see the impact of all the work that they put into it on our plan, which we are putting forward tonight. So I urge my fellow councillors, even if they feel as though perhaps there are pieces of this plan that deserve some tweaking, or that there could be further conversation about what's in this plan, I urge them all to vote in favor of these plans so that we can move forward with this project, so that we can have our public meeting on June 18th, so that we can gather further feedback from concrete plans, from something we're really proposing and not just rumors and misreadings and something somebody heard from someone.
Okay.
So
thank you, Councillor
Thank you.
Aronson. I'm assuming there's no change in vote, so 5 in favor of sharing the plans and the public consultation and the latest iteration with the public, 2 have remained against. Okay. Item number 5 is Councillor Gallery. Numéro 5, c'est l'avis de motion et adoption du premier projet de règlement de concordance, règlement 1639, modifiant le règlement 1301, je m'excuse, 1301, concernant le lotissement. Le Conseil Gallery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hereby give notice of motion and table the draft bylaw 1639 entitled Bylaw Amending Bylaw 1301 concerning subdivisions, and give notice of motion to the intention to submit it for adoption at a subsequent meeting of the council. This draft bylaw is a concordance bylaw required for the amendment of the urban plan through the integration of the Special Planning Program, PPU, for the southeast sector of Westmount, Southeast PPU. I will now propose to adopt the bylaw. So I move to adopt the first draft of bylaw 1639, amending bylaw 1301 concerning subdivisions, which is necessary for the amendment of the urban plan through the integration of the Special Planning Program for the southeast sector of Westmount, Southeast PPU, to hold in accordance with the Act respecting land use, planning and development, CQLR, Chapter 8-19.1, a public meeting regarding the draft bylaw, its contents, and the consequences of its adoption on June 18th, 2025 at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Bostock. Do you want to add any further comments on this? No, it's fairly clear.
Yep.
All those in favor? That one is unanimous. Merci. Item numéro 6, c'est encore Conseil PREMIÈRE, c'est l'avis de motion et adoption du premier projet de règlement de concordance, règlement 1640, modifiant le règlement 1305 sur les plans d'implémentation et d'intégration architecturale. Councillor Peart.
Merci, Madame la Mairesse. I hereby give notice of motion and I table draft law bylaw 1640 entitled Bylaw Amending Bylaw 1305 on Site Planning and Architectural Integration Programs, and give notice of motion of the intention to submit it for adoption at a subsequent meeting of council. This draft bylaw is a concordance bylaw required for the amendment of the urban plan through the integration of the Special Planning Program, the PPU, for the southeast sector of Westmount, the Southeast PPU. I therefore propose to adopt, or I move to adopt the first draft of Bylaw 1640, amending Bylaw 1305 on site planning and architectural integration programs, which is necessary for the amendment of the urban plan through the integration of the special planning program for the southeast sector of Westmount, Southeast PPU. To hold, in accordance with the Act respecting land use planning and development, CQLR, Chapter A-19.1, a public meeting regarding this draft bylaw, its content, and the consequences of its adoption on June 18th, 2025 at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Shammy. Do you want to, it's fairly clear, that one. June 18th, 6 p.m. Seconded by Councillor Shammy. All in favor? Aye. That one is also unanimous. Item number 7, notice of motion and adoption of first draft bylaw, concordance bylaw, bylaw 1641, amending the zoning bylaw. Avis de motion et adoption du premier projet de règlement, règlement de concordance, règlement 1641, modifiant le règlement concernant le zonage. C'est Conseil Gallery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hereby give notice of motion and table draft bylaw 1641 entitled Bylaw Amending the Zoning Bylaw, and give notice of motion of the intention to submit it for adoption at a subsequent meeting of council. This draft bylaw is a concordance bylaw required for the amendment of the urban plan through the integration of the Special Planning Program, PPU, for the southeast sector of Westmount, Southeast PPU. I therefore move to adopt the first draft of bylaw 1641, amending the zoning bylaw, which is necessary for the amendment of the urban plan through the integration of the Special Planning Program for the southeast sector of Westmount, Southeast PPU, to hold in accordance with the Act respecting land use, planning and development, CQLR, Chapter A-19.1, a public meeting regarding the draft bylaw, its content, and the consequences of its adoption on June 18th, 2025 at 6 p.m.
Merci beaucoup. Appuyé par Conseiller Aronson. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Does anyone want to speak to that as to their vote? No? All right. Item, that was 7. We are now moving to item number 8. C'est encore Conseil Gallery, avis de motion et adoption du premier projet de règlement, règlement de concordance, règlement 1642, concernant le zonage incitatif.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Je donne l'avis de motion et dépose le projet de règlement 1642 intitulé Règlement concernant le zonage incitatif et donne avis de motion de l'intention de le soumettre pour adoption à une séance ultérieure du Conseil. Ce projet du règlement est un règlement de concordance nécessaire à la modification du plan d'urbanisme par l'intégration du plan particulier d'urbanisme du secteur sud-est du Westmount, PPU Sud-Est. I therefore move to adopt the first draft of incentive zoning bylaw 1642, which is necessary for the amendment of the urban plan through the integration of the special planning program for the southeast sector of Westmount, Southeast PPU, to hold in accordance with the Act respecting land use, planning and development, CQLR, Chapter A-19.1, a public meeting regarding this draft bylaw, its content, and the consequences of its adoption on June 18th, 2025 at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Aronson. I think Councillor Peart had spoken to this issue before in terms of the incentive zoning. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Councillor Roux and Kez against. Everyone else in favor, so the motion is passed. We now move to item number 9, notice of motion bylaw 1643, amending bylaw 1612 to establish rates for the fiscal year 2025. Avis de motion, règlement 1643, modifiant le règlement 1612, visant à établir les tarifs pour l'exercice financier 2025. C'est conseiller Peart.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Je donne avis de motion et je dépose le projet de règlement 1643 intitulé le règlement modifiant le règlement 1612 visant à établir les tarifs pour l'exercice financier 2025 et donne avis de motion de l'intention de le soumettre pour adoption à une séance ultérieure du Conseil. Ce projet de règlement est en lien avec la modification du plan d'urbanisme par l'intégration du plan particulier d'urbanisme du secteur sud-est de Westmount, le PPU Sud-Est.
Merci beaucoup. Appuyé par Monsieur.
Il n'y a pas de vote.
Il n'y a pas de vote sur celui-là.
Not one.
Okay. So that brings us to the end of that part of the agenda, which is a big step, which is a very big step and an important step. So now we have a second question period. We also have some questions online that had been submitted, so maybe we get the questions. The people who submit the questions online get mad at me when their questions are kept to the end, and the people in the room get mad at me when their questions are kept to the end. So we will go, okay, on va commencer avec vous, and then we'll go to some questions online. Or maybe there won't be any other questions, and everybody's completely informed.
I have a question for two specific councillors. Councillor Roux and Kez, why are you dragging your feet on the approval of this first iteration of the PPU?
So you're meant to ask the question through me, but I will acknowledge that you are asking
Thank you.
Councillor Roux and Councillor Roux and Kez a question.
As has already been said by others, this vote is to allow the public viewing of the work that was put into the PPU. Do you not want people to understand what is going on?
Councillor Kez.
First of all, my understanding is the first draft
Yeah.
is that I am adopting, and I'm not comfortable adopting. In general, as I've said many times, the objective of the redevelopment of the Southeast should not just be a financial gain, squeezing together as many buildings as possible within a limited space. I want to ensure we build community, enhance the quality of existing and future residents. I believe there's a balance that can be found. One extreme is being presented in the other. I'm of the view, I'm not dragging my feet. I'm representing my residents, and I'm waiting to hear what the feedback is of the second viewing. Let's see. I'm not voting against it. We're not in September yet.
No, I think what she's asking is that you voted against the the tabling of the documents, which is what you
I voted against what I understanding when I read thoroughly was that I am approving, I'm adopting what I'm showing the residents. I'm not adopting it. I want to not be tied to it right now. I'd like to see first what residents have to say. I have no intention of residents not seeing the document.
But if you vote yes for this, we will be able to see what it is.
The document,
I don't have it in front of me.
you'll see it tomorrow on
Regardless,
the website.
the PPU isn't just about buildings. It's about the future of Westmount and people like myself, because if this gets voted against and there's no development of the area, I'm going to be pushed out of Westmount unless I live with my parents until I die.
Yeah, don't worry about it. You will have plenty of places to live. What I specifically said, I am excited. I want something to happen in Southeast. I live in the Southeast.
this.
I've lived there for 30 years. I walk through there all the time. Believe me, I want something done.
Councillor Roux, I think the question was also directed at you.
It was, and I think I explained it. Unfortunately, it got here after I gave my explanation.
possible.
Yes.
But I want to ask, why are you voting no? Because what is it going to take to satisfy you? Because this
What will it take
development
to
process,
satisfy me
this
for-
participation process can go on for decades if we drag it on and
Not
on.
what I'm asking for. I'm asking for residents to see the plan
Yes.
before I approve the first draft of it to see if they're happy or not. My job is to represent residents. I wholeheartedly believe we have to do something in the Southeast that there's no doubt about.
So what I had explained before you got here, that this is part of the process of tabling the documents so that residents can see them.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but it just, the vote for no is confusing me, so.
Okay, thank you for your question. Next question, and then I think we'll go to online questions.
Madam Mayor, I just want to, John Pritz, I commend you for saying that you listened to everybody, to that developer who just, said, oh, it's a minority holding it up. I find that very offensive. I found your answer very good. And apparently
Thank
I
you,
read
Mr.
there was
Pritz.
another developer who said it's too bad that historic buildings hold up progress. Well, we're going to be going through a process, and I think these people kind of have to be weeded out. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your commentary. Next question, I think we have a question online and in the room, so maybe we're getting a 2-for-1 here. Welcome.
Thank you. You have to excuse me. I'm trying to get out of this phone exactly what I want to say. I'll give you a couple of comments, though.
So just your name and this, anyways,
Robert Cohen. I'm a resident of Westmount.
and he submitted an online question as well, so I'm assuming it's the same question?
It's the same question.
Okay,
I
so
did
we
an
won't
online
read his
question
online question.
earlier today.
Okay.
Just a couple of thoughts what's happening tonight, okay? One could ask the question, why hasn't there been any development there? Councillor Pearce, you talked about that, as you have also, Mayor. The reply could very well be because there's no plan there, and people are waiting to see what it is. Okay, that's why they haven't done it. That's the first thought. Second thought, the financial capacity of people to do development, notwithstanding the gentleman who spoke earlier. We live in a city now, the CMHC there was an article on CTV yesterday about development in the center city of Montreal. And it's very clear, with advice coming from an economist at CMHC, that there is oversupply downtown. There is development happening around the island in the suburbs, but not downtown. And the people who have developed now aren't selling and they're not renting their places. As a result, they're not actually getting a return on the investment because they're renting because there's no other source of income. So this notion where the money is there available to do that is not a given. And which means that if one goes forward quickly by September and it rezones the area, the people sitting on that property will wait until the boom comes back again, as opposed to actually starting the revitalization immediately. In Westmount now, on Claremont, 500 Claremont, I believe it is, that you stated earlier, but also on Prince Albert, on de Maisonneuve, there are 5, 6-story buildings that are being built. They are able to get the investment required to do that and the funding in relation to that. The financial community now, we saw recently that another situation in which a REIT, I think it's one of the real estate investment trusts invested in 12 properties of the Bay, and they wrote down the loan from $250 million to $50 million in the last 3 or 4 weeks. There have been bankruptcies of major institutions, including Groupe Selection, which had 15,000 senior homes in this area. So it's fine to say we're going to go height and whatever, but is the money really going to be there? And it's an incentive for the people sitting on the land. They sit on the land, they pay the taxes, and so there's a financial consideration that you should be very, very concerned about. If you give me a moment, I will speak. I will then come to the reason why I'm here.
I think we probably have a copy of the question if you want. Do we have a paper copy of the question?
No, I have it here. Okay.
Okay.
I come. Thank you. Thank you for waiting. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, my question is addressed to you with the support of Phyllis Lambert, as well as Julia Gersowitz. We've thought about this very seriously, and we've circulated it to you in recent days. I am a restaurant resident, as I said earlier, as is Julie Gersowitz, and Phyllis Lambert was born and raised in Westmount and cares very deeply about the future. We share with you the concern, and it's, we all share this tonight. It's amazing to see the outpouring on all sides, okay? And I commend you for what you're doing. It's really an obligation, you take on that burden and obligation and all the resources that you bring into it, but also I'm very aware of also the mobilization that's happened within the community who honestly come forward and say, this is not for us, folks, and what do we do about it? So we're in that process in the middle of it. We share with you the concern that there is deep dissatisfaction with the LeVée plan, and working closely with you, Madam Mayor, and your fellow councillors, we think that we can achieve broad-based social acceptance between the community and the private sector house stakeholders. We recognize expertise, we ourselves have recognized expertise in architecture, urban planning, heritage properties, affordable housing, consultation, and consensus building. We offer to assist you to build consensus with the community and the private sectors. We suggest you indicate your willingness to receive this positively in the public meetings today and on June 18th. In September, you will be able to adopt the Special Urban Planning Program, PPU, which results from this process. Your lasting legacy, and all of you, will be the result of this approach, and it will be socially acceptable to the community and private sectors. It is understood that you are not leading the process in any way, nor are you obliged to follow our recommendations. You're a deliberative body, you're empowered to do that. But we will come forward as a result of that process, and you will have the last word on it. We ask that in the next few days you appoint representatives to be present in this process. My question is, are you willing to receive this offer positively now?
So thank you for your question, and I had received it earlier today and in sort of a different version in a letter. So I have seen this request from you, and I had an opportunity to meet with you last week, as did Councillor Peart. And I encourage all forms of dialogue on this, and I would love for you. I think there are a handful of building owners in the room. I can't force anyone to meet. I can't force a private citizen to meet, but I'd encourage you to reach out to them, or for them to reach out to you to hear. I don't think, I know it's being portrayed that we're so far apart. I don't think we're actually that far apart. I think there's so much of it that we want that is similar in terms of knitting the urban fabric back together, of bringing the vitality back to the area, of allowing some densification, allowing more housing. I think where we may disagree is on the heights on one stretch, on St. Catherine Street from Atwater to Wood, and on the south side. But if and it's also when we talk about these heights, like, if it's not economically viable, I mean, the market, they know, the owners, the market, they know better certainly than city councillors to decide what they take the risk. The risk is entirely is entirely on them. So they will have an understanding of the market. We see, we talked a little bit about downtown before. Again, I think we're a way better community. I think people will live in this community and families will live in this community. And I sure would rather live at Atwater and St. Catherine and Westmount if I had kids than downtown where those services don't exist. So, but I encourage you we've had public consultations. I can't put in place a formal public consultation structure at this point because I can't force individuals to meet. They're not my subjects, they are my residents. But I would encourage you to meet with them, and I would love to hear what the outcome is. And I think you have very broad experience, as do the other members. So I encourage you, and if I can be of assistance or connect you via contacts, I would happily do that. But I can't have a binding. That wouldn't be a process that I would put in place. But I'm always for discussion because I really do think we're a whole lot closer together than people think.
Well, thank you. It's because it's obvious from just this what's being said today that there's a need to do that, and there's a very short time. Unfortunately, I think it would be better. It would be better if we had a year in front of us, or at least 3.
The unique thing.
It'd be better if we had at least 3 months, but it's 3-4 months. But at any rate, it'll be compressed. But I think there's a big effort that can be done, and I hope that people that you appoint people also to participate in that, because the city's interest is very great.
I'm always open to have dialogue. I have met with you twice now, and I've appreciated your feedback. And I know Councillor Peart and many of the councillors have met. Councillor Gallery, we've met with different members of the community. It's always tricky when we meet with developers, right? Because it's like, are we being lobbied? Well, I sure have been lobbied by other sides too. So it's, I think it's an important dialogue. What I also think is unique, and I have no evidence of this, I can't say it, but a huge number of these buildings are owned by Westmount residents. It's not a foreign company with no interest. They live here. They not only own the building, they also live here. They've raised their families here. They're invested in the community. I've seen other developers, one project that was really hard to get off the ground, but he lives here. I see him on the street all the time. His kids go to school here. They're deeply involved in the community. Like that, I think also, I don't know if that's the case everywhere, but so all that to be said, I encourage you to meet, and if I can facilitate that in any way, I'm happy to.
Thank you.
But I can't force them to sit at the table with you. Councillor Peart, you want to add anything to that? Or anyone?
Just want to add a little bit of context too, because I think you cited some projects, some lower to mid-rise projects in the city. And since my time on council, I can think of quite a few. There's 500 Claremont, which we had approved right after we came on council in 2017. So that's in construction right now. That's a mid-rise building. I can think of 4898, which went through 4898 on de Maisonneuve, which went through a couple of iterations, still not complete today, low rise as well. I can think of 4216 on Dorchester, which went through 2 iterations of PPC Moise to fill an empty site, which is a 3-story building, low rise, again, not accomplished today. I can think of One Hillside as well, which went through an iteration for demolition. It has been approved by council. It is 3 to 4 stories, low-rise, large existing footprint, existing building. What was on market were large family-sized units, approaching 2,000 square feet or so. Again, not executed. So it's not, and of course these are all.
That project, we should also note, we had to reset it because the size of the units was too big for what the market they had to listen to some market demand there. So we have allowed for a zoning change for smaller units.
So in my 7.5 years on council, we've added no housing, basically. Projects have, and this is during the go-go years of the condo building in downtown and elsewhere.
All around us.
All around us. We weren't even able to convert that in low-rise form in Westmount. So I find it a little discouraging, but finally we're getting some traction. We are seeing 500 Claremont come to fruition almost 8 years later. I don't know what's going to happen with One Hillside. I hope that makes it through. We're seeing 4898 de Maisonneuve come to completion, but again, at a very, very long time for turnaround for construction, long after it was approved by council. So it's not, the slowdown is not, yes, council slows things down from time to time, but the market was there. There was an intent to build, but it's not just because it's low rise why it's going to be an immediate success. We also saw sorry, I forgot the big one, of course, on St. Catherine Street, where there was a 7 and a 10-story construction project that was a residential project that was approved just before I came in on council, and we went through. We authorized the demolition. The demolition went through, and that project never materialized. And even they were not even able to sell that to anybody else, to the point that they were willing to forego the $1.4 million deposit that they gave to the city, that we cashed that check. So it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked, and I'm at odds I would love somebody to come up with a conforming project, because we have not seen a conforming project that's come through every time, the 2 times, even Dawson. And Dawson wanted to come along, and it would have been a fantastic resident for the sector. It would have been an anchor.
Would have
It would have been transformative. It would have been an
We wouldn't be
anchor.
here tonight if it was Dawson.
Would not be here tonight, but even them, they asked for additional height. So,
I want to stress what I said, because I hear everything you're saying, and I mentioned 2 projects, and you talk about a half a dozen others that didn't go forward, and I can understand you're on top of it and you see it happening. The reality is, though, that there's serious problems about development now. There's serious problems about the banks funding these developments, okay? And government can't do everything, and government isn't going to fund 20-story buildings. So if you rush to judgment, okay, and you give them the authority to do it, it means that they just sit on it and they'll pay the taxes, and when the boom comes back, they'll do it, and it will not be done immediately. Okay? That's so your hope, that suddenly it's going to. The issue of security on St. Catherine Street is a municipal issue that you have to deal with, but you're not necessarily going to resolve it that way. And there's a big risk that the developer gets the money, sits on their stake, because it's not viable now. There's an oversupply of housing now. They aren't building anymore. The boom is over. Trump has come into place. The Canadian economy is going to change, and it's not going to make it easier.
Thank you for your commentary. I won't comment on the
no.
several levels of that, because that would take a long time. But I am happy to try and facilitate and connect you with some of the building owners. And we encourage, we want dialogue, and we want revitalization, as we said. And if it makes sense for them to build 7 stories, that would be allowed within the zoning if this were to be adopted. And we've been good in Westmount about being at times overly prescriptive about things. And perhaps we need to, listen to needs of residents, but also, what's viable, what will actually happen. And as we said before, they're taking the risk, right, in some ways. So it's, anyways, thank you for your commentary, and I will happily, Councillor Gallery.
Just quickly, we don't know what we don't know. So if the zoning stays the same, we actually know that it's of less interest to developers or investors. But with this framework, we'll see if this is of interest to the people out there. And it's a chance that I believe is worth taking.
Thank you. I think this will be our last question in the room, and then we'll go to questions online. And if there's more questions afterwards, we can do that, but we do have some online ones. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Sebastian Highlands. I'm president of Kevrick. We are the owner and the developer of the 1100 Atwater office building that fronts right onto Atwater at the intersection of Atwater and Tupper. And I do want to stress the importance of actually getting this process going to at least have a plan and actually having a framework for this area. And I'll give you an example by absurdity, okay? We purchased this building, which was the RBC building, data center building, built in the 1970s. It was an office building ever since the 1970s. On our site, for some odd reason, was residential zoning, okay? We bought an office property with the objective of revitalizing an office property, okay? Not building more office, not even adding floors, just making it nicer and actually revitalizing. We had to go through a rezoning process just to put our use in conformity, which I know council understands. I know the urban department understands. I think it is extremely important how much the citizens need to understand how this area of Westmount is stuck in this absurdity which causes it to not be able to transform. I don't want to talk about heights. I don't want to talk about uses. Okay, let the markets and the developers actually propose. But what I think it is important is for Westmount to actually explain clearly to citizens what the process is. Approving that a plan actually be reviewed by citizens tonight does not mean that tomorrow morning there's 20-story towers throughout that whole neighborhood built uniformly, okay? That is simply not true. There seems to be actors in this rooms and in the public discourse that seem to be pushing this narrative. And I think it is excessively important that you actually find a way of communicating that to all the citizens because it's not in the interest of anybody. And when you actually look at that area, it is a very clear example of the City of Montreal that actually allowed development, okay? And the City of Westmount, which is still stuck in its rules and regulations that are broadly historical and absolutely not representative of how downtown Montreal, Ville-Marie, and Westmount have evolved over the last 50 years. And it is really important to approve a framework, okay? So that a process can actually get going. Because through our redevelopment process for an office building, okay, an office building that brought jobs, okay, that brought revenue and actually revitalized an area that really needs it, okay, desperately. Not only did we have to do a rezoning process, we even tried to improve the streetscape around Atwater, which we had support from council, which we had support from the urban design groups, which we had support from the newspapers that actually saw our renderings, and we weren't even able to allow it to do it, because when I came myself to this room to actually present the project, we got hung up on, hey, wait a minute, how many cars? Oh, if I can't park that many cars in the street anymore, I'm gonna get my car robbed, which is frankly not true. Okay, so we have an issue around information over here, which leads to absurdity, which leads exactly to what you're seeing in that neighborhood, in that area for the last 50 years, which essentially causes the homelessness issues and the danger issues. So my questions, and sorry, is it possible for council that when you unveil this plan and this framework, that you properly inform the citizens as to what happens afterwards, so that they can consider it and actually realize what it means over time? Okay,
Yes,
it
so
is extremely important.
That is
Thank you.
intended in all of the documentation and the framework. And I thank you for your commentary. Also, thank you for what you did to that building, what you've done to that streetscape and that neighborhood. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, like the transition from the previous building to what's there now, that I know went through the rigorous process of PAC, I think is a huge addition to the neighborhood and to the street. And it is, you are right, when a building was vacant, and the urban planning people can certainly describe this more accurately, but we've seen this in a couple places where everything reverts back to residential if it's empty for a certain amount of time, which is obviously something that needs to be addressed. So you're not the only one. Clifford's, which was a dépanneur, sat empty, which all of a sudden with its glass front was storefront right on St. Catherine Street, was now going to be zoned residential, which everybody, I'm sure, would love to sit in a fishbowl on the corner of the street at Clifford's as their living room. So obviously, and we've said this before, like, you know, the city has to move forward. We have to update and deal with these bylaws as we move forward, and we're not static, and we shouldn't be static. We shouldn't be stuck in time. And this is an important step forward. And I guess for me, you know, I'm not running again. This is not an election campaign for me, but I feel a responsibility not to add another 10 years of decline onto this area. And I take that responsibility very, very seriously. And I hope that we can get as much community consensus as possible, but we won't get it all.
No, but I do hope your
And
fellow
it also
councillors-
doesn't, you raised a very important point. This is not the approval of a building permit. It's not the process that you went through. It's none of those things, but it is trying to find the best path forward and understanding, you know, what's happened there over the past 60 years and what we've seen through all the reports and all of the feedback and all of the, and the sort of splitting of a neighborhood below Dorchester from the rest of the city. So anyway, that's all I have to say on that.
So I just want to add one quick thing. Every single one of the potential projects in that area has the opportunity of actually adding to that community like we did with 1100 Atwater, okay? And again, there is a process for every single one of those projects, to be reviewed, and the citizens will be able to see it, and it will have to conform with zoning and the view for that area. So I really think it's important that the overall citizens of Westmount and who represents them actually communicates that very strongly, because it is so important. You have, like, in the next 10 years, it'd be great to be able to walk that neighborhood, and that it is the showcase neighborhood of what Westmount aims and ambitions to be. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Roux wanted to mention something.
Yeah, so to clarify my answer before and to speak further to what Mr. Highlands just said, we see a lot of files on council. We're not experts on all of them. Everybody here is not an expert on urban development. I know I certainly am not in architecture. So I've been listening to different groups as much as I can. Sorry, some experts invited us. I learned a lot. It was fascinating. I wish the developers would have invited us, not to lobby us, but to explain your business to us. For me to be able to wrap my brain around it and go, okay, good point, hadn't thought of that. And when I'm trying to think of what I want to do,
Sorry, just the developers did write to you?
They wrote to me. I don't get a chance to ask questions and have their business explained to me when they write to me.
I'd be very happy to explain the business.
Well, I don't think this is the place to do it.
No, I'm not saying now, but it would actually be, I think it would be really interesting if the developer, someone from the developer community, would sit down with the citizens to show how a pro forma is built for a project.
Mr. Gideon Pollock, first Elizabeth will finish, Councillor Roux will finish, and then you can ask your question.
No, so I don't think this is the forum to have it. I'm just saying that I'm trying to understand the whole concept, because this is not my expertise, but I'm trying, I mean, I've gone on walks on urban plan, like urban development walks. I'm really doing everything I can. I read everything I can, and I'm trying to be able to end up with the best possible decision.
Okay,
so that's why I'm also saying, because when I think of my decision, sometimes I go, okay, this is how I feel, but if I hear that the majority of the population is going, Elizabeth, that's your great idea, or your vision, but it's not how Westmounters want to live, then, as we say in French, je prétends pas être assis sur la vérité ou en possession tranquille de la vérité. So if people tell me, no, that's not it, I will listen to residents. So that's what I've been saying from the beginning. But the bottom line is I'm trying to educate myself. And on other projects, there's things I haven't thought about, and I saw feedback from residents. I'm like, okay, good, I hadn't thought of that one. She's got a point. So when I say I want to hear residents on this plan before because honestly, the train is out of the station at this point once we vote on this. So I just wish we could have looked at how the trains were attached before we set it out.
I'm actually...
So just on that point, we have spent months and months and months, and this when many of us ran in 2017, this was an important issue because we had just come off the JOUR report and the recommendations there. So we have spent a long time discussing, dealing, where everybody's had the opportunity. Many different building owners were also at the public consultations that participated in the tables where we divided everybody up. We didn't sit you all together. Everybody was sprinkled through the room, and so there has been an opportunity. You have written to all of council. It arrived by email. It arrived by registered mail. It was also in the newspaper. So there has been an opportunity where council knows exactly who the building owner. It's also not difficult to find out who the building owners, but council knows who the building owners are. So, Mr. Pollock, your question.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was actually being genuine. I think it'd be interesting to sit down and actually show those in the room or in the community who are not familiar with the process of building a building, what actually goes in from a financial standpoint, what actually goes into it, because there seems to be this, what I consider a misconception, that we're all dripping with money, and that it's so easy to build a building and to carry a building for years and wait for the zoning to get better, and it's only going to get better, and everything is so easy. It's not. It's actually a remarkably bizarre process, because in many instances, the projects that seem very viable, we find ourselves trading 4 quarters for $1, and that is not what risk takers go into business for. So it's very much required that we maximize the potential of a project just to be able to make a risk-adjusted return. It's not; these are not excessive returns. These are not, we're not crypto bros. We're really just, really just trying to build a product and not lose our shirts. I know many might find that disingenuous, but it's actually true. So if there ever is an interest, I'd be very happy to take people through a typical pro forma for a project. I've probably built 5 of them for that, just on that block, for various sites on that block, just to show how difficult it is to make a profit out of it.
So in full disclosure, Mr. Pollock is the developer that I was talking about that is very engaged in the community, that had worked very hard with the community when his project, 500 Claremont, came forward. There was a lot of opposition to it, and I applaud you because you took the time and you knocked on the doors and you met with the neighborhood, and you explained what it was and why it's good. And it's painful to live next to a construction site for sure, but I do have to applaud you for the commitment to the community that you made on that project. And I know we have not made it easy for you. Like
listen,
there's lots of learnings.
It was a very complicated project for many reasons. I'm not blaming anyone, but
that communication with the citizens is such a critical part, and I applaud you for that.
Anyways, the offer stands.
Okay, thank you. Des questions en ligne?
Parfait.
And I think that Mr. Cohen, can we say that your question online has been asked?
Good.
Okay.
First question, Marie-André Cantillon. Is it not questionable whether in economical context of high interest rate and economic uncertainty, considering Ileva's struggle to sell condos, is it justified to build this tower? Rebalancing the project, including concern, respect for the Atwater Library, don't you think we ought to consider a community-focused development?
Thank you for your commentary. I know you're talking about one building, I think on Atwater that you're referring to. I'm not entirely sure. And then sort of a global context as well. But I thank you for your commentary, and I'm pleased that the Atwater Library will be, I hope that it continues to grow within our community, with hopefully some new neighbors to be using it as well. And I think we touched on some of the other issues already. So, and the next question?
From Jen Fergus, why is the council ready to rezone an area in order to facilitate a project that contradicts all that Westmount stands for in architectural heritage? Thanks to our 20s bylaw that will preserve our human scale home by okaying a huge tower next to the Atwater Library.
Well, there's no building application in that we're dealing with at this point, and we're trying to revitalize the neighborhood, which I think the Atwater Library would be a beneficiary of.
All right.
Anyone want to add anything to that? No?
Next question from Marina Bresky. Given council expressed interest in adding heights to building on St. Catharines, given the lack of Westmount's hydro capacity, which has resulted in the rejection of permit application for expansion of existing buildings, 1. Will taxes increase overall to accommodate building owners benefiting from increased heights proposed in your zoning bylaw changes? By how much? Second, what measure will council put in place to ensure an equitable distribution of hydro capacity across the territory? Should the bylaw change trigger hydro demand over and above its capacity? Relating to question number 2, does the city have legal protection should the bylaw promise more than the city can deliver?
Thank you, Ms. Bruschke, for your comment. You're the second person, so I would imagine you've probably shared this information with the other one about this Shadow West. I think you're referring to Shadow Westmount. That is the what? Anyways, that is not accurate information. But as for the others, I don't know. I've answered that throughout the night. So, any other questions online? No. Another question in the room? Hi, I think the mic, you have to bring the mic down and just state your name.
Marcy Katz. I have two questions. The first one is related to these industrial-style air conditioners that I see being installed on houses in Westmount.
So is this specific to the agenda tonight, or is this more of a question for a general council meeting?
Well, I guess I wasn't up to date as to what type of meeting this was.
Okay,
here.
so
I'm sorry.
we're meant to be only taking questions on what's on the agenda because it's a special council meeting. So you have a question about HVAC units on top of buildings?
That are industrial-like in size, and all you see when you look at the homes now are these massive air conditioners without anything around them on Westmount Avenue, on Carlton, on...
Okay, so that's an issue for, that is not on tonight's agenda, but we would happily respond to any concerns that you have on that.
And traffic control.
That as well is not on tonight's agenda. But if you would like to write to me with those specific questions, we can try and get you some answers on that.
Specifically Claremont and Sherbrooke and Victoria
Yeah, so-
and the Boulevard. I thought people who were doing the construction of that building were responsible to get traffic control.
I'm happy to talk about the traffic pain that some of these projects are causing and what we're trying to do to solve them, but tonight there's people who are here for a different reason.
So it's the next meeting? that
Yeah,
I
it's
bring
June
this up?
9th.
Okay, I apologize.
Thank you.
I'm very glad to see that Jeffrey Chambers is behind me, so I'm not the last person asking a question. This is my final question, because as I've sat here, I've now
Sorry,
understood...
just that we all know, but
Julia
for the
Gersowitz.
record, yeah.
As I sat here, I now understand that all of the bylaw motions that we have passed, or that you have passed tonight, that we have witnessed you passing tonight, will be the subject of the public consultation on June the 18th. So that you will have to explain to residents what the principle of incentive zoning is and how that's virtually a meeting in itself, just to make the public aware of it. I have a feeling if I did something incredibly bad, which I'm not going to do, and polled each one of the councillors at this table, I would not get a coherent answer on what incentive zoning is, except perhaps from Conrad Peart. But you're expecting that all of those questions, including the fact that you have decided to limit the size of stores on St. Catherine Street, but not to limit to not control in any way the size of the units, so that every single zone that you have presented to us tonight is going to have shoebox units as the minimum required, and no percentage of so many family units, so many shoebox units, etc. You haven't done any of that fine tuning, but you're expecting how long? So here's my question: how long is the public consultation meeting going to take on June the 18th? Because you're going to be bringing a lot of questions to your citizens who are going to be asking for answers. And how long are you expecting that consultation meeting to last? Will it last till dawn? And if so, are you providing breakfast?
It won't last till dawn, but if it did, I would give you coffee.
But how long are you anticipating it
I think we would
lasting?
anticipate a maximum of a 3-hour meeting.
But that's also to go over the whole
Yes, and
revised
we
plan.
encourage people to come prepared and look at the documents.
So
if they
you're
are interested in
expecting a
this.
great number of architects and urban planners who will be familiar with reading documents, plans, elevations, sections, etc.
Well,
Is that right?
citizens also have a point of view on this, which we also take into consideration.
Absolutely, but if you expect us to know, to have done our homework in advance, which is completely reasonable, you do have to understand that most people cannot read the codes of the drawings that we are so familiar with ourselves on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you
Okay.
for your commentary.
So it's a 3-hour consultation?
Is that, it's starting at 6 p.m.
So it's open-ended?
Yes, the documents will have a lot of information and explanations in it, but it starts, I believe, at 6 p.m., and if you have a child graduating from Selwyn House, unfortunately, you won't be at both events.
Thank
you. Next question and final question in the room.
Jeffrey Chambers, Côte Saint-Antoine. This may be just adjacent and not on topic, and if it is, then deal with it some other time. But I noted in the throne speech today, the government has made a short-term policy goal to reduce the infrastructure costs of residential development by half. And I think that there are three possible ways they could do this. One is direct grants to municipalities, one is grants to provincial governments to then be distributed, and third is direct grants to developers. Of those three, I think direct grants to municipalities are by far the most likely to actually affect the policy goal that they've put forward, and I'm hoping that the City of Westmount, either through municipal collectives or directly with federal representatives, will advocate for that policy choice, which I think is going to be made in the very near future.
Yeah.
And I think you're well placed to have an informed opinion about that, and I hope you put it forward. I don't really need an answer to that. It's more of a to table it.
I'm happy to answer it. Or to give some commentary on a fairly loaded question. In Quebec, obviously that money in other provinces across the country, they have the ability to receive the money directly. In Quebec, in this unique place that we live, that obviously goes through the province. What we're going to see is some strings attached to that money, I believe, and that it is, there seems to be less patience for the blocking of projects, the inability to get things done. If you see just in the news yesterday, 26 signatories are able to block an entire development in Nuns Island. Is that democracy? Some would argue that it's not, but someone, obviously we want to take a balance there, but there seems to be a real impatience from the federal government of holding it up, and there is a need for, we let in a whole lot of Canadians that contribute to society, that work in these jobs, that we didn't have a proper plan for housing, obviously on a national level. So I think there will be big changes coming, not just from the federal government, but also from the provincial government, and how this funding rolls out. And it's sure, there's not I was just at a UMQ conference, and I'm going to an FCM conference, and every single mayor will tell you the exact same thing. Infrastructure and aging infrastructure in their communities, and the ability for municipalities to pay for it, whether it be in real dollars, in a sort of a pay-as-you-go system, is impossible, or just to keep up with the amount of work that's needed, so that there will need to be support from federal and provincial levels. And I think I hope that we are going to see an action-oriented plan on housing and helping municipalities get that housing, I'm all open for a check from the federal government to deal with the water main at the corner of Atwater and St. Catherine Street, because it's a big one.
Can I finish?
For the third question of the night, or it's probably actually the 12th, but yours, but okay. Your third appearance at the microphone, yes.
John Breslow.
Welcome
back. One of the things that we do stress here is democracy, and the idea of these public consultations is really very important. The public comments that were submitted on the internet on the southeast sector generated, I think, something like 470 responses. It was huge responses, very satisfying. If I look at the people who rejected the concept of height, especially for the Atwater market, 84% were concerned about
Atwater
height.
Market?
Sorry, for the Atwater Library, sorry. 84% were concerned about height. Only 5% were directly happy with the LeVée report.
The commentary that was
submitted online after the 470 responses that we received. When we have public consultation, it has to be meaningful. It says it in the law. And meaningful public consultation says, in this context, we don't want to have a 20-story building next to the Atwater Library. And when you have that degree, remember, we don't have a referendum in this context. We only have, in this concordance situation, the public consultation. When, Madam Mayor, we have such a strong opposition to increased height, the increased height that is so at odds with our Westmount heritage, when we have that, it is incumbent on council to take that into account, and to just go and say, fine, it's still 20 stories, is not acceptable. I'm sorry.
So I wish it was as simple of a formula as that. It is not, but I think we've addressed many of these issues tonight, and we have heard from many people. What we also heard in the public consultations certainly at the tables that I was at and where I was speaking to people was that there was very much so on St. Catherine, as opposed to on Dorchester or anywhere else, an acceptance that there would be some height there. What I would say, and to close off, the current situation is not a strong reflection of the heritage value of this city in terms of a demolished property and some boarded up windows.
Totally agreed.
So thank you everybody for joining us this evening, and the meeting is adjourned.